Hi, everybody. Hi, Soul Seekers. Today, we're going to talk about how you have the power.
I have the power.
You have the power.
This looks good.
It looks good. I like it.
You have the power to get your message into the world because no matter who you're worrying about, all the people who you are afraid will not get your message is causing you to completely disconnect and avoid the people who are meant to hear it. And that's not fair. Not fair at all. So that's what we want to start with today.
That's not fair. Boo-hoo. I need to hear your message. I actually need to hear your message. And I think a lot of people need to hear your message. And I'm talking to you, Linda, but I'm also talking to you watching. There is something that you have to say that someone needs to hear, because we are all connected and we all have our stories, and your story is important to somebody, and not just somebody, it's probably important to a lot of somebody's.
That's right. And so let me introduce myself again. If you don't know me, I'm Linda Krause Barnett, one of your soul guides, and the lovely
Cheryl Wolfson, one of your other soul guides.
And Trish and I were talking about some of we're going to start with my little personal story of my hesitation with really putting my book that I'm writing out into the world. So yeah, there's the first book I've ever written. So there's definitely some just normalcy to the nerves. But then there's the nerves that I've self-created. Then there's the sabotage that is self-imposed. Then there's the fear and a limitation that I have put upon myself. And so when Trish and I discussed it, we discussed the book starts with me spinning out of control. It's your low. It's where change begins. But when you're in it, it doesn't feel like a very revolutionary moment. It feels like shit. It feels like I'm never going to get out of here. Why bother trying? And so my book starts with that spin. And the book is chock full of personal stories. What does my spin look like? And for a while, I resisted because I was like, well, what if someone reads it and their low is lower than my low? They're going to be like, what does she know about a low? But in fact, the conversation Trish and I had just before getting on, there's just like anything else. There's a spectrum, right? So if your rock bottom is lower than mine, then there's a whole group of people that you are going to connect with in that rock bottom. But there's also a ton of people whose rock bottom looked a little bit like mine, where it was a rock bottom of an identity crisis, a rock bottom of, I was this woman, I'm not her anymore. I am older, I am heavier, I am tired, and I'm not doing the things I love, and I feel stuck and suffocated, and I can't breathe. And even if you have people out there who are lower than that, for you, not being able to breathe is a freaking big deal.
Yes.
And there's other moms sitting home going, I can't breathe. Please help me breathe. And you might be that lifeboat for someone. And so I have to take I put my story in, and then you take yourself out of it, right? You're like, what if someone needs to hear that? Who am I to worry so much about the people who don't need it that I'm putting the people who do at a disadvantage?
That's right. And one of the most important things that we've talked about with each other, and I've talked about with many of my friends and any client that I speak to, is your story is valid. Your experience is valid. So whether or not your experience compares, yes, you can compare your experience to somebody else and go like, oh, that person's experience, like they have a much better life than me, so they can't understand what I'm going through. Or you look at somebody else and say, well, they have a much worse experience and they can't understand what I'm going through. Or like, my story isn't as significant because theirs is really, really tragic. It doesn't take away from your experience. It's just like with children, and I use my kids as an example all the time, but losing a little piece of Lego or their favorite doll or something that's important to them may be just as significant to them as a big loss for you, like a loss of a job. And you may look at your kid and say, what are you complaining about? It's a piece of Lego, we'll buy more. But you don't know what it signified for them. So their loss is just as valid. And I think that we sometimes as parents, we forget that. As women, we forget that about each other. Like, whatever it is that you're going through is valid. I mean, for myself, I remember my first pregnancy resulted in miscarriage, but technically it was a blighted ovum. So there wasn't technically a baby there, but I thought there was a baby, and I felt the loss of a baby. It didn't matter that technically the baby didn't exist, because I walked around for 6 weeks thinking I was going to have a baby. And for someone who has had a much more devastating baby loss, and I knew friends who had lost children after birth, or 7 months into the pregnancy, and that is catastrophic. And I completely negated my own grief because I didn't think it mattered enough. And that's the kind of thing that we need to understand for ourselves, is that whatever level of grief, whatever level of trauma, whatever level of experience that you're having in your life, it's valid. And if it makes you feel sad, it's okay to be sad. And if it makes you feel depressed or anxious, or if it makes you feel something, that's valid. And to go to Linda's point, what's also important is that if it was significant and valid to you, chances are someone else out there has had the exact same experience, maybe with a few adjustments, and feels the same pain, and also is dismissing the validity of their pain because they look around them and see people who have it worse.
And I want to talk about two things to piggyback off of that. One of the things I write in the book, after the awareness of holy shit, my life's not working the way I wanted it to work when I was a little girl. This is not what I imagined growing up would look like. And then there's a chapter that I wrote, and I'm validating myself now as we speak, because it says it's okay to not be okay for as long as you need to not be okay. Because sometimes what happens is you sit too long in that discomfort, and people are like, listen, you've pouted for 3 whole minutes. Get your shit together. And I get that. I get wanting to help people back up. But, I might only need to sit in it for 3 minutes. You might need to sit in it for a year. Someone else might need to stew in it for 3 years. Quit applying someone else's rules to your game, because your game has its own ref, its own rules. I sat in it for a little while before I made a change. But you know what? The exact moment that I chose to get out of it led me down the path to where I am now. And where I am now is a beautiful place. So maybe the stewing, it's like cooking, the longer it cooks, the better it tastes. You get all those juices and the flavors. So maybe that was my cook time. Not every meal gets the same cook time. Not every person gets the same sit in it time. And so honor your sit in it and wait time. And the same with your rise up, I sometimes get jealous. I'm like, they did it quicker. And look, they're already successful. They wrote a best-selling book. But here I am on my own little personal rise and ascension. I don't know what it will look like compared to everybody else. And I can't worry about that. I have to know that I'm going to document and share mine. And if it's a train you want to get on, then welcome aboard. And if you're like, it's too slow of a train, or it's too fast of a train, or it's too green or purple, then don't get on, but we have a right to share and bring people along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to, I want to go back and touch on a point, because I feel really strongly about it, that you said at the beginning, and you use the word self-sabotage. And I really want to make note, and I will probably do this several times in, the soul seeker's life, because I really have an objection to that word self-sabotage, because self-sabotage has this connotation that you are destroying yourself. And I don't believe in self-sabotage. What I believe in is self-protection. When you do things that appears to sabotage your success, what it is you trying to protect yourself. Whether it's protecting yourself from belonging, wanting to belong to the community, so you don't want to step out, or whether it's protecting yourself from ridicule or fear or shame or whatever it is a protection mechanism. And the sooner that you can embrace that self-sabotage and reframe it to, I'm trying to protect myself. So it's almost like, you know, that older sister or older brother, or which I don't have, and Linda doesn't either. But it's like, you know, or like a mother, father figure in your life that's constantly telling you, like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, that's not the way to go, because I think that in order to stay safe, you need to do this. It comes from a loving place. It comes when you are resisting, it is from a loving place. And the more that you can embrace that and learn that that resistance is coming from a self-protection place, then it will be easier for you to release it in order for you to move forward and say, oh my goodness, thank you for protecting me. But you know what? I got this. I can do this. I can move forward. I'm safe.
And I respect that 100%, and I don't disagree with anything. However,
I knew however was coming.
However, I think it depends. I think if you believe sabotage is...
Are we going to debate this? Let's debate. Go.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, Soul Seekers, those watching, I want you to pick a side right now. Are you on the Trish side? Or the...
That's right. Vote now. Self-protection or self-sabotage?
You're going to get more votes, but let me explain my point.
I don't think so.
Where your sabotage, just like you're defining protection, because sometimes protection hurts you.
Oh, yeah, so, sure.
Right? And so protection isn't always like loving. Sometimes I've protected myself from things that I didn't need or should not have protected myself from. So I think it also is important how you define sabotage. You know, like, is sabotage mean that you're vindictively kind of coming in from a negative place? Or could it be that sabotage is keeping you from the things you want to accomplish and the things you want to create? And so my definition for myself is like, yeah, I self-sabotage when I hide behind the stories in my mind, and whether they come from a place or love or not, when intuitively I am guided by the very people, you know, thing that I pray to, when I say, like, get me out of this, and then I get that guidance and that intuition, but I'm like, is that really a sign? Like, is that really what you want me to do? That wasn't very fancy. That was kind of just like, just feel joy. I'm like, really? That's what my message is?
That's still protection. I mean, this is semantics. But it's still protection, and it's still from a loving place.
But when well, yes, but what's not loving is when you don't follow your intuition and go to that next level, you're protecting yourself from goodness. And I think that's sabotaging behavior.
Well, yes. I mean, it can be looked at as sabotaging behavior, but it comes from a place, like, I still think that it is a loving act for yourself that just comes from a lack of trust, because that's really what it comes down to, is the sabotage comes because you don't trust that things are going to work out in the way that you hope they do.
Agreed.
And so it's like, you know, jump in the pool. No, it's cold. And it's like, you know, jump in the pool because once you get in, it's going to be refreshing. And you're like, it's cold. And you put your foot in there and you're like, nah, man, it is cold. I am not going in that water. And that is
Florida.
You know, it is, yeah, exactly. But that's a protection mechanism, because you're like, I don't want to feel cold. Even if it's just for 2 minutes, I don't want to feel that splash of cold. I will not feel that splash of cold. So that's protecting you from the thing you don't want to feel. However, when you go, okay, I know this is protection. I know that this cold is going to hit me. And I know that once I go in, that then I will be taken care of, and I will trust that that cold will then turn into a refreshing, beautiful swim. And that's where the embracing of the protection comes from. I mean, you can use the word self-sabotage. You can use self-protection. That's totally up to you. For me, when I use the word protection, sometimes
it gives me permission to continue hiding because I'm like, oh, I'm safe and it's protection. Whereas if I use a word that allows me to understand that I'm keeping at bay the things that I'm trying to call in, that in my mindset, it's like sabotage because you want what you're pushing away. What are you doing? Whereas when I call it protection, I'm like, oh, see, like I'm safe here. Why wouldn't you want me to be safe? I'm just protecting you're right. It's semantics and it's your mindset, right?
Well, but that, and I'm so glad you brought that up because this is my jam. Let's go.
You're watching the first Soul Seekers argument. Are you listening?
Because it comes from the same mentality, and this is not anything against you because I experience the same thing. This comes from the same mentality that we have to beat ourselves into submission. Because if we embrace where we are afraid that we won't change. But that's not true. Like, you're afraid that if you, and I'm not saying you necessarily, but I am saying, like, let's go with women and maybe you as well. If you don't embrace your body and love your body, like if you love, it's the same kind of idea or example. If you don't love your body, then you might stay fat. Like, and so if you tell yourself that you don't look good and that, then it will spur you on to making changes. And like I said, I'm not referring to you, I'm referring to like the conversations that I hear, women saying like, I don't want to look like this. So if I accept this, that means I will settle for this body that makes me unhappy. And it's the same thing in life. If I accept this sabotage or protection, then it means that I'll stay still. And I disagree. I think that when you embrace it, then it's not because you still want to stay there, but it's that you want to move forward in a more loving way, where it's like
but I disagree, because I think I don't disagree. I just think that if you believe that you're making forward motion, but like we talked about earlier, if you believe that like, well, I want more, but I should really be okay with what I have, because there are lots of people who have less than me, and I have money and a house and a husband and kids, and how dare I ask for more? Like, so, there's a difference between staying where you are in a flow of forward momentum and staying where you are because you don't believe that you deserve more.
Yeah, 100%. And it's all about the vibration behind, like the intention behind what you're saying. Correct. And that's why, like, I always pick on the words, because words can be dangerous because they hold a vibration, right? I absolutely believe that there's a difference between saying I don't deserve more, so I should be happy where I am, and being truly grateful for your journey up until this point and embracing where you are, and also wanting to, evolve, because like there's a very different energy behind, like, I'm so proud of where I am. I'm so proud of who I've become. And I look forward to seeing where I go next versus I should just shut up,
Well, I agree with you, but I have to tell you, like 100% of me agrees with you.
However,
but I'm going to tell you something else. It takes you have to come from a place of like, there's this place you have to be at to go, yes, I want more, but it's coming. And I some days I'm in that place, but like when I wanted more and I didn't know how to get it, I didn't feel like there was a way to get it. There was no path to it. I think as humans, sometimes we know we want more, and maybe we are like open to it, but then there's this point where you're either going to go one of two ways. You're going to like be like, it's coming, I accept where I am. And I think that's an enlightened place. I think, you're very often coming from that because you've done so much work to get there. I'm a few steps behind you. So sometimes when I get there and I'm like, I don't know how to figure this out. I know what I want, but I don't know how to get there. I hit resistance, and it's very hard in those moments, unless we're ascended, like we've done, I don't know what kind of work we do, but to see past that resistance and go, okay, it's coming. I'm okay. I'm grateful for where I am. And I know that I'm on this journey, because sometimes we want it so badly that we're frustrated if we don't have the answers.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. And like, first of all, I don't believe in like an enlightened place. I think we are always working.
Right.
We are always working. And you know, I might be a few steps ahead in certain aspects, vibrationally or whatever, than you, like, or like perspective wise, because this is literally what I've been doing for my entire life, is looking at things in this way. But that's irrelevant, because I have days where I'm like, this sucks. Like, I have days where I'm like, but I just don't have it yet. And it's not about getting to the point where you like look at it and say, oh, I'm always ready to receive. Like, some days you're not ready to receive. Some days you're like, I'm going to get up and I'm just going to work my tail off and go after it like nobody's business. And some days that's what you need to do. And I think that's what's important, is that it's connecting with that inner voice, because that inner voice sometimes says, get off your ass and do something.
Absolutely.
But it's not always, and people mistake the law of attraction, because of like The Secret and whatever, you know, way they've interpreted the law of attraction, that it's all about like, I'm just going to sit here and things will come to me and the universe is abundant. And it's not that. What it is, it's about connecting to yourself. And when you get those messages that say, call that person, go to that event, do that, you know, write that book, like those messages, when you start to follow, and those can be sometimes like really terrifying. Like, as you know, Linda knows, and you guys probably, I've had a book sitting in my computer that's like on and off written for like 5 years. And part of that has been fear, but part of that has been resistance. And another part of that is I'm still pulling the pieces together of what's to come. And that's what I want to share with people too, is that all of the things that you feel on your journey are valid. The resistance is valid. And you can feel that resistance and accept that resistance and go, obviously I'm resisting something here, and that's okay. And the secret and the work is in trying to figure out how to get around the resistance. You know, it's like, well, I can't go this way because every time I go this way, I hit a wall. So it's like, you know what? Let me just step back and let me just take a detour and go somewhere over here. And you'll find that if you listen to those inner whispers, once you pull away from the resistance, you'll get there in a weird sort of like, you know, way. I mean, how long, Linda and I, how long have we been talking about doing a show? And we didn't even talk about doing a show together necessarily from the beginning, but we were like, you know, I want to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden we were like, this would be so much more fun together. Let's do it together. Oh, yeah. Like,
and even the concept of the show has evolved 25 times.
So much.
You know, and it's like, look, at the first book I was going to write was a dictionary to reassign meaning to words that are important, and to have like a soul dictionary. So I had my guiding words.
Yes.
And I still have the book in my computer, and I'm going to write it as soon as I'm done writing this book that I never intended to write, you know? But it's, if you allow, and Trish says, we talk about this, and she helps me a lot with this, is if you allow the evolution, if you don't say it has to be this way or no way at all, and you just say, I want this, but I want it, you know, I want to write a book. Let's see what happens. And so now I'm like the 7th edition, which by the way, I finished last night. So woo! Yeah. So
that got heated.
People are like, really? That's your fight?
I know. You know, what's funny, and people may or may not understand it, because you and I are so much alike and we often agree on so many things, but we do come at things from different perspectives, and it doesn't always show, but we do. And it's one of the things that I love about you, and what made me think that it would be good for us to work together in a sense, is because I have my perspective and you have your perspective, and it's always complementary because it gives like another part of another facet.
And I love about us, I'm going to compliment the Soul Seeker hosts. What I love about us is knowing that we come from different perspectives, but I have always taken breadcrumbs from your perspective, and you've taken breadcrumbs from mine. Like, we've always kept our own point of views, but gone, you know what, is really great. I'm going to pull it in, and you've done that with me. And so that's what it's all about, right? We can agree to disagree, but at the same time, there's a lot of, I'm open to what she has to teach me and offer me, and it's reciprocal.
Absolutely. One of the things that I remember listening to an Abraham Hicks recording or whatever on YouTube, and it was so funny because she was like, if, because one of their biggest teachings is like, stay in high vibration at all costs. Like that's the thing that people take from it the most. But what she says is, you cannot live in a bubble. You cannot just be like, oh, bad vibration, bad vibration, like you have to live in the real world. So the real work is to be able to talk to somebody and sit with somebody whose perspective is completely different, which is not us, but with somebody who has a completely different belief system, has a completely different experience, and be able to hold space for them, listen to what they have to say, because that's how we expand and learn. Because there's going to be something that they say that maybe there's a lot of things you don't agree with, but then they say something that suddenly you understand where they're coming from, or you understand, or they say something that you're like, wow, I never looked at it that way, and you can be grateful for that interaction. And you grow. And if more people sat in that, like, I'm willing to learn versus I'm going to convince you of what I'm saying is right. And I mean, like, I used to be like queen debater with everybody in my family my whole life. I still am.
I was going to say that, but I am too. So,
yeah, like where it's like, you have to see my point of view, but that's been shifting, and that's evolution, where I'm like, I don't necessarily need to convince everybody of my point of view. I definitely want to be loud for those people who need to hear my message and who want what I have to say and are like, thank you, that helps me. And those people who don't care about what I have to say, that's okay too. It's like, as long as you're not disrespectful or rude to me, I won't be disrespectful or rude to you. And we can just be like, okay, you think what you think and I think what I think, and that's perfectly fine. It is sort of like a loving and respectful, open communication is the thing that I wish and hope for the most on this planet. So yeah.
So the bottom line is, you matter and your message matters, and speak your truth, and don't block, don't tighten, because all of your fears will go away when you connect with the people meant for you.
Absolutely. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Smash it.
Ring the bell to get notifications. And we will see you very soon.